This is Democracy Watch. Marc, we have been especially focused on Donald Trump using executive orders to try and target specific law firms, including the law firm that you yourself used to work at for years and years. We now have a major update on this effort that doesn't exactly bode well for Trump. Can you explain what just happened?
Yeah, Brian, a few days ago, Donald Trump issued an executive order that targeted my former law firm, a firm that I actually left in 2021 to start my own law firm, but targeted them largely, frankly, over activity that I was involved in, right? He didn't like the fact that I was the general counsel of Hillary Clinton's campaign. That was apparently too much for him. He really didn't like the fact that in 2020, I led the legal effort to prevent him from stealing an election in the post-election. And he had complaints about other aspects of the firm. But he issued this broad executive order that basically tried to cripple the firm, saying they, couldn't have security clearances. They might not be able to go to federal buildings, issues involving government contracts, like a whole bunch of stuff. And it was an outrage that he did this. And it was widely decried as an outrage by people who care about the First Amendment. That law firm brought litigation, filed a lawsuit saying this is an outrage and shouldn't stand. And a federal district court judge in Washington, D.C., Judge Howell, issued from the bench, like as soon as she heard oral argument, blocked the main provisions of that executive order while that case now proceeds through the court. So a big victory for my former law firm, big victory for the rule of law. And another one of these defeats that Donald Trump has suffered in terms of his executive orders.
Well, clearly Trump knows that it's not just about having this be upheld in court, that he's also trying to cast kind of a more broad chilling effect on folks who associate themselves with that law firm and consequently any law firm that really is going to be critical of Trump himself. And so do you think he's going to be effective at this tack of basically trying to use the federal government, use the levers of federal government to target individual law firms to hurt them in their bottom line, to prevent clients from wanting to sign with them, knowing that they might ultimately fall into this broader net of trouble with the federal government?
Yeah, Brian, I mean, it's more than that. I mean, he's targeting law firms. He's targeting lawyers. I mean, you and I talked about how recently he singled me out, and as well as some other lawyers, in a speech he gave at the Department of Justice, which was not a very subtle way of sending a signal about, where he thinks we stand vis-a-vis, Pam Bondi and Cash Patel.
Right.
But his whole goal is to try to chill every industry from standing up to him. So he first, went after members of the legacy media, and many of them, frankly, let's be honest, they wrote checks, they bent a knee, they sent delegations to Mar-a-Lago, and he got what he wanted. He did the same thing with the technology, with many of the technology leaders and billionaires, and the business class as a whole. And now he's trying to do it with the legal profession. This is not the first time he has targeted lawyers to try to intimidate both not just those individuals or those individual law firms, but to send a very clear message to the broader legal community. Hey, if you want to do business as business as usual, you've got to suck up to me. I mean, one of the biggest, most prestigious law firms in the country, a New York law firm, is representing him in his appeal of his criminal conviction. What the hell are they doing that for? Yeah. They're doing it because they figure it may get them some purchase or some continued access or whatever, be in favor with the president of the United States. And what you're seeing here with this executive order targeting first a big DC firm and now executive order targeting my former firm is to send the opposite message to big law. If you don't play ball with us, maybe something bad happens.
Well, we've seen the ways in which the tech billionaires have bent the knee. We've seen the ways in which these media companies have bent the knee by settling frivolous lawsuits, for example. We've seen the ways in which regular news outlets have bent the knee. You did just allude to the fact that we have at least one major law firm that has decided to curry favor with him and represent him. How has the law profession more broadly? I mean, this is an industry that largely serves as a bulwark against this administration's worst excesses. How has the law profession more broadly either stood up to or cowed at the feet of Donald Trump as we head into his second term here?
Look, I mean, I want to speak very directly to the audience and candidly and maybe make a little bit of news. I mean, the fact is we are seeing instances on a regular basis of big law firms not being willing to take on clients. They're not willing to take on nonprofit organizations that are bringing litigation against the Trump administration. They are, I'm hearing reports of paying clients that they are not sure they want to take on because they are afraid of the Trump administration. And so that is the reality, in the same way that Jeff Bezos has created a new reality for the opinion page at the Washington Post.
Right.
And so, I can't, at one level, I can't blame these law firms because they want to stay in business and their corporate clientele wants them to be on good terms with, the administration. But on the other hand, as you say, lawyers have a unique obligation. Lawyers have an obligation not just to their clients, and certainly not just to their own economic interest, but to the rule of law. And I do worry that we are going to see fewer and fewer large law firms in particular willing to take on unpopular causes or unpopular clients in the eyes of the administration. That if the administration declares that they really hate, a startup entity that helps progressive influencers, for example, if he targets that for disparagement, are you going to see the entertainment industry be like, we're not going to support them? Are you going to see the legal industry say, we're not going to support them? And that is what I am worried about. And that is the reason why we need not just independent media, the work you do, the work I try to do at Democracy Docket, but we need law firms to stand up. And by the way, the Perkins Coie, my former law firm, they got an excellent law firm, Williams and Connolly, a Washington, D.C. based litigation firm, one of the best litigations of the firms in the country. They took on that case. And let me tell you, I saw what they did before the federal judge in Washington, D.C., in the case that we were talking about, and they pulled no punches. I mean, they were effective from the get-go. And kudos to them for taking this on. But I do worry that, with notable exceptions like that, and they are true heroes, and the lawyers of William and Connolly brought that case, are true heroes. But I am worried that for every set of heroes there are in the legal field or in the media field, there are also many others who just want to stay out of harm's way and are cowards.
Well, to that point, I mean, you and your team have been anything but. And I think for folks who are watching, who are looking to help the lawyers out there who are showing some bravery, who are showing some courage in moments like this, the best way to do that for Marc and his team is to sign up for Democracy Docket. This way, he'll be able to reach out to you directly to let you know what's happening on the legal front directly. And so I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Again, that is the best way to support his work and that of his team. Marc,
and I want to emphasize something, you have said previously. Democracy Docket is not built on Substack because Substack is a for-profit company, and right now it is available to all comers, but who knows? We saw what can happen when social media platforms or other platforms turn against certain creators because they fall out of favor. And I worry that, you could eventually have a world in which, whether it's Substack or some of the other social media platforms, bend the knee to Donald Trump. So Democracy Docket is on its own platform. And it's important that for me to be able to make sure that I can get the word out about what is happening to democracy and what threats there are. So I always thank you and your viewers for signing up. And I just wanted to say that to you.
Well, it's a great point. I mean, look, this administration has proven that it's willing to use any power at its disposal to try and quash dissent or censor its critics. For all that talk about censorship and silencing their opponents and how much they love
First Amendment guys,
the First Amendment, how much they love that precious First Amendment, they are falling over themselves now to put pressure on every social media platform to quash dissent. And we've seen folks like Mark Zuckerberg perfectly content to do exactly that. And so I think it's important, that you have built your newsletter, your direct way of getting in touch with people, not on some social media platform that's owned by a billionaire who has a very strong vested interest in kowtowing to Trump, but rather just unto itself as an entity that isn't reliant on pressure from the federal government. So again, highly recommend. I'll put the link right in the post description. Sign up for Democracy Docket if you haven't yet signed up. Or a quick question on Perkins Coie needing legal representation. Why would lawyers need lawyers to be able to litigate something that presumably Perkins Coie would be able to do unto itself?
Yeah, so Perkins Coie is a great law firm, big law firm. lots of really good litigators, but there's an old saying that a lawyer represents themselves as a fool for a client. I mean, you want to have a lawyer that can have a little distance. The good lawyers at Perkins Coie, they are undoubtedly undergoing some stress and strain regarding this targeting. And it's better to have independent lawyers look at the situation and advocate in the way they can from a little bit of a distance. And again, all of my admiration to the lawyers at Williams and Connolly who were willing to take this case when, I can tell you there were other big law firms that were not. And by the way, I have still been looking for the other big law firms' statement, like just a press release standing up for them. In the same way that you and I talked about, where is the legacy media in standing up against Donald Trump? That's what unfortunately I think we're seeing in so much of society, including in many corners of big law.
Well, Marc, I think the obvious question here, watching them target Perkins Coie, for example, watching Donald Trump name drop you like he did yesterday at the Department of Justice, the fact that he was willing to do that, is there any concern that your law firm is going to get in the crosshairs of Trump?
Yeah. So my law firm, Elias Law Group, we are not subtle since it's named Elias Law Group. They would know where to find us. And so sure. I mean, look, I don't think anyone is telling you the truth if they say they are not worried. Of course you're worried. Like you're worried because the president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, has a vendetta against you. And so of course I am worried. The question is not whether you're worried. The question is, what do you do with that worry? Do you cower in fear? Do you back away? Do you try to make a pilgrimage and a deal to try to suck up to Donald Trump and compromise your principles? Or do you stand tall and continue to fight? And that is what I have chosen to do. That is what my law firm's chosen to do. It's what Democracy Docket, the news outlet that I founded, does. And frankly, Brian, it's what you do. I mean, I watch almost every video you post. And every video you post is telling the truth about what is happening to our country. You're interviewing elected officials and telling the truth. You are doing commentary on what Donald Trump is saying in real time. I actually watched I watched the State of the Union. I'm a little embarrassed to say I watched the State of the Union at all, but I watched it because I watched it on your feed, and you were giving real time commentary for what Donald Trump was doing there and telling lies. And so all of us who are playing our part in this time in history to try to stand up for truth and for the rule of law and for the Constitution and for justice, we put ourselves at some risk. And I'm sure you worry about it. Yeah. We all have to worry about it. But the thing is that in this moment in history, that we are doing the best part we can in the roles that we have to stand up against it.
Perfectly put. We'll leave it there. Again, for everybody who's looking to support the invaluable work that Marc and his team are doing at a time when we need it most, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.